Hey, welcome, welcome, welcome. Be with you in just a second. Hey, everybody, welcome. We got wait a few minutes for everybody to show up. I got my electrician here. Let's see. Let's see who we got on the call. We got Amy. Amy, welcome to the call. Can you hear me?
I can now.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, no, I was out for a second, and just going to give you a message. We need to call the power company for the flickering lights in our home because that's what Lou says. I believe Lou. All right. Let's see. I'll leave that there. Welcome, everybody. Let's see. So if you have not logged into Trailhead, please do that now. I'm going to share my screen. Somewhere I got this thing. There it is. And do a quick check-in. I still, look, I haven't, the problem with the group and our chatter, and I'm sending you out my emails. The problem is I don't know my Google account very well. So if anybody knows Google admin very well, then please hit me up after this, and we will talk about how to fix what we got. So we are in the, let's see where I'm at. I'm in my trail mixes, and don't worry, I'll put it in the chat. Let me go ahead and log in to my developer org, and if you can do the same thing. Oh, hang on a second. Make sure yep, we're recording. I got my on the bottom. Perfect. Okay, so we go to login.salesforce.com. And again, we're using a developer org so that you've got a fully functioning version of Salesforce that you can use 100% on your own. And I'm going to log in with a different name, and I am DAC January 2020 is my username. Yours is whatever you put it as. You should be able to log right in. And again, one of the things I really do relish is your comments, your questions, your concerns, because that actually will make up the, why is that booger doing that? Okay, here we go. Help me with some of the course material that needs to be developed as supplemental to this, what's provided by Salesforce. Now, if you logged in and you went to the Classic experience. Those of you that know Classic, you can see, again, reading the screen, top down, left, right, one line at a time. You can see that there's a switch to Lightning Experience link at the very top of the screen. And if you're not familiar with this setup, I mean, if you're not seen Classic before, you know, it's worth taking a little time, because while we're going to work mostly in the Lightning experience, the Classic experience is still that Classic. It's not like Classic Coke where they're trying to make up for a mistake. And I don't think my camera's on, so hang on a second. My video going. Hey, everybody. Hi, welcome. Hi, Melinda. Welcome to the call. Which Melinda is that? Is that Melinda Lewis, or is that Melinda? Pretty sure it's Melinda. Awesome, awesome. Hi, Amy. Welcome. Anybody else want to take a risk and put their camera on and say hello to everybody? That would be awesome. We have, I'm going to guess it's Melinda. Welcome, Gil. I'm guessing it's Melinda Lewis. I hope it's Melinda Lewis. It could be Melinda Schmitty Connect, but I can't spell
It's Melinda Lewis.
Hi, Melinda Lewis. How are you?
Pretty good. I don't think you're sharing the right screen.
Oh, I am. I'm looking at Classic. Are you looking at Classic?
Nope. Nope.
Let's see what I'm sharing. Let me look and see. What was I sharing?
You were sharing Lightning.
Oh, here we go. All right. How about that? How about
That's it.
that now? So when I logged in to Salesforce. I used my username that we created as part of this class in the curriculum. Who's Samsung SM? Curiosity. I'll find out in a second. Hang on. Where'd you go? There we go. Oh, we have Divya's on the call now. Divya, welcome to the call. Let's see. Whoever's on the Samsung, I'd like you to just change your name. Anyway, so a couple people are brand new. This is week 2 of our SuperHero Sales Administrator course. So for all of you that have used Salesforce before, you're going to be learning the tools of a Salesforce
Dominic,
Administrator.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Samsung is Brian Waltenberg.
All right, perfect.
Thank
Awesome,
you. Welcome,
awesome.
Brian.
It might be that. It might be if you're operating from your phone, it'll pick up something else. And one of the things I've discovered is I can't save your names as a some weird thing going on with my whatever. So with my Zoom meeting and the level that I have. So let's roll back. So welcome new people. We are going to go through the admin curriculum over the next 15 weeks. We'll probably get through it much faster than that. And if you're ever ready to take the test, let me know if that's your goal. Some of you, that's not your goal. I'm going to switch. If you can see my screen now, I'm going to switch back to the Lightning experience. Let me see where I've got Joel Shivitz. Okay, perfect. I've got, oh, perfect. Jazz, you changed it. That's awesome. Okay. And I also created a very robust trail mix that I'm in the process of breaking down into more like the content that we're covering in the class itself. I put together the trail initially with a lot of information that I've used before. So, and again, normally I train this class with a PowerPoint, but I'm going with the trailhead, and I'm doing that for a specific reason, and that is so that you have access to this training material ongoing. And as Salesforce updates and makes changes to the editions of Salesforce that are broadcast in the world, you'll have access to any of the updates or changes that reflect that in the trails as well. So you can tell we've been, I have been messing around with a bunch of trails. So I'm going to jump back into, so far, I kind of even reorganized the trails again a little bit. And in the Salesforce SuperHero Sales Administrator, we're going to change the name of that eventually, but right now we're going to leave it alone. You should have gotten a link to this. If you didn't, I'm going to post it in here. And if you haven't created your Trailhead account, which I think all of you probably have already. Alt-H, where's my Alt-H? On West Coast. All right, no worries. Thank you, Brian. Hey, no worries. Brian, this might be a little tough with, but that's okay. Listen, this is all still like, we're just in the, we're like a, we're getting a boulder to move, and then pretty soon it's going to start rolling, and then it's going to pick up momentum. And I know Michael Bencoli's coming back from Africa today, so he's not here. And there's some new faces. So I am going to pause the recording in just a second. And I'm going to ask some of our new students just to come on board, just because we're a cohort. Yeah, no problem, Amy. Oh, wait, did I send that to you privately? Hold on a second. We'll put the paste in there. So a couple of things. Here's where you should be. Number one, if you haven't logged into Trailhead, go to Trailhead, click the link that I put in the chat, and that'll take you to Trailhead, to this particular Trailhead. And if you haven't created a developer account of your own, this is you're creating your developer account. So if you click it and you go to developer.salesforce.com and click the green sign up button, then you can create your own free Salesforce account. Everybody says Salesforce is expensive, but it's free if you get the right little account. Now, when you sign up, I would prefer, based on my experience, most of you I think are okay if you don't do this, but I would prefer if you use your personal email address when you fill out your email. And then when you create your username, here's the first little lesson as an admin. Every username inside the Salesforce ecosystem is unique. So in order to create a unique username that would not interfere with any other accounts that you have with Salesforce, I would say you put your initials, which is like ABC, January 2020 at superhero.com. Now, nothing will go to that as an email address, but every username is formatted like an email address in Salesforce. So whether it's a real email or not is no problem. It just has to be unique. Now, the reason that it's just a good thing to remember, every email address is unique. So typically when you're building this out for your organization and you're creating users, they have a unique email address. And if it's your company is the only company that you're using for that email address, then that'll be unique in the world. And if you're setting them up on an account, that'll be the uniqueness for that user. So typically follows their email address. But in this case, it does not follow the email address. It just has to be formatted like an email address. And then so just fill out this information, put in your email address here, make sure that's a real email address. Because in order to activate this account, you're gonna have to click a link in your inbox to actually log in for the first time, activate the account, make sure it's real, go into a real person. Otherwise, that username gets deleted pretty quickly. Now, after this class, if you stop logging into this account, I think it's 6 months, but it could be as much as a year. This account will actually automatically self-deprecate. So is that the right word? It'll explode. You have to log in every so often to keep them available, because these are the types of accounts that if you decide to go in a more technical path, developer accounts is where you work for clients, develop customization strategies, anything you want to do custom, even putting an app on the App Exchange, you can actually do in this free account. So you got full functionality whatsoever. And then you can, use that account. So these are out there. They're fully functioning, awesome accounts. So I logged into mine. You should log into yours. And let me, I think we've got on the, just give me a thumbs up, or there's a little bit of, if you go to participants tab, there's a little, you can put in a little checkbox or a red X. I don't know if you guys can see here. I'm going to take a picture of it. If you click, hang on a second. I don't think it'll show otherwise. So let me get to it. Where are you at? There we go. My little snipping tool. I'm going to show you what it should look like. It should look something like this. After you hit the participants screen, you should get something like this. And at the very bottom, you got a yes, no, go slower, go faster, more detail. That's available to you in the controls for the, in your controls. And I want to just test it. See if you guys want to test it. See if you can give me a green checkbox. Yep, Julia's got it. Melinda's got it. Amy's got it. This is test. Brian, you may not be able to do it because you're on a phone. So, just know that we have this interaction tool, but Gil's got it. So there should be a little control panel on your Zoom login, wherever that Zoom stuff is. And you should be able to see that. If you haven't got it yet, or you're on your phone, either one could be the case. All right. So the other thing is, when you go and log into so a couple of the trails we've already gone, I've assigned is get to know Salesforce, the Lightning experience for Classic users, in case you're making the transition from Classic to Lightning. The reason I put that one in there, even if you haven't made the transition, it kind of gives you a little, heads up into what Classic is like, so you don't get too caught up in it. There are some CRM fundamentals in the Lightning experience that I think are important. And we did that last week with the, let's see I can't remember all this stuff. There's actually some trails that you can go to. And again, this is a combination of tests, some other things. So, learn certain fundamental. Oh, this is a whole trail mix thing. So, in there are, we'll talk a little bit more today about the structure. We talked about leads. We're going to go into the more, right now we're actually going to start with leads and opportunities for Lightning Experience. And then we'll talk about reports and dashboards and chatter, along with accounts and contacts. So anybody have any questions before we get started? Okay, great. So I am going to pause the recording just so we can meet Divya and Melinda on this call. And let me put that back again. So I didn't have the recording on. For the sake of those that are not here, just going to do that one more time. So you've never been back in the retake. So we're picking up. We've introduced Divya and Melinda to the group, welcome them. So far, getting to know Salesforce, the Lightning experience for Salesforce Classic users, and Lightning experience productivity should be trails that you've completed. Now, I stuck the learn CRM fundamentals for Lightning ahead of that, so that's new in the order of things. But let's click on that trail, and I will post that specific trail. It's like a trail mix within a trail mix. And I'm going to post that in the chat just in case you're having any trouble getting to where we're talking about now. And we're going to start with the first module, CRM for Lightning Experience. And like I said, some of the trails, as we go through them, you'll notice that you've already done them. And you're like, why have you already done them? Because they're reusing different modules and topics in other trails. And I haven't Anyway, so let's talk about this trail first, getting started with Salesforce CRM, which it should just be a quick overview. And, again, just kind of a reminder that Salesforce is a customer success platform. And it's really designed to help you run your business. However they say it creates a foundation of data that represents your experience and what you do in business. Hang on one second. Gil would be proud of me since he set these up. All right. Is that any better? That's a little brighter on my face, but I think my videographer would be happy. All right. So, and it has everything you need to run your business from anywhere, which means if you really take the time, and it takes time and patience. So one of the modules we're going to come up later on is called KISS, which is Keep It Standard Salesforce. We're going to talk about the difference between standardized Salesforce and custom. The way that I relate to standard Salesforce is it's hardwired, pre-built, ready to run Salesforce. And so when, I think we might have already covered this, when we talk about CRM, the relationship in customer relationship management should really say customer related data management, not my relationship with you, the customer. Lightning is a little better. Lightning is a little better, right? Gil set these up weeks ago, and now I'm finally using them. So again, Salesforce organizes your data in tables of data, which you're probably used to if you've ever used any other database in the world. They call data tables tables, right? Salesforce calls them objects. They're rows and columns of data organized really to be that type of data. So it's very homogeneous data, the data that is relevant to the kind of data you're collecting. So and when you think about this as like ingredient, because I'm a cook, chef, kind of, not really a chef, I don't consider myself a chef, but the kinds of data that you collect, you want to make sure that you keep separated. It's only when you put those things together to do something that you want them to connect in some way, right? You add those ingredients together. So there are types of data like account data, which is the companies you do business with, and customer data, contact data, which are the people you're talking to. And those are the people that work for the companies that you're doing business with. Well, Salesforce is set up just that way. So every row of data translates into a record, right? And that record is much easier to consume like a picture on a flat surface. And so those are called record pages. And in Lightning, they're called Lightning record pages. And the reason I'm saying that is because when you edit the page layout, when we get into the setup, you're going to notice that Lightning is the new version of Salesforce, has more features and functionality that you can add to make that data even more robust, more connected to the other types of data that you store and reference while you interact with your customers. And again, I know what you're thinking. Doesn't every big company use something like this? They all do, except for like Xfinity and AT&T. They clearly don't use this whatsoever to help their customers, but we'll talk about that later. All right. So again, a record is that that whole row of data in a table. If you're thinking of a spreadsheet, it'd be all the data in a row. All of the fields would be each column. The object would be the entire spreadsheet, if you will. The org is your collection of tables of data that all your users can log into, really your company's information. And an app is that set of fields, objects, permissions, functionality to support a business process. Now, I'll just say that apps are like collections of tabs. Tabs represent objects, which are tables of data. And you basically put a mix together. If you got a marketing person, they don't need to see everything a salesperson needs to see, although there's some overlap. A service person is the same way. They need to see some things that different than sales or marketing. And executives need to see different. So depending, always you want to frame what happens in Salesforce is based upon what your users need to see and what they need to do as part of their job. And the more people that do the same kind of work can be grouped together so that you can give them all the tools they need. So I'll go back to the kitchen and say, if you've got, you know, my first cook job that I ever had was at TGI Fridays. And they hired me as a cook because I was a school-trained Marine Corps cook, hoorah. And they said, yep, you're qualified to go behind the line. They put me on salads. Salad. Yeah, there's one guy that does all the salads at Salesforce, assembly line, right? And I had all the materials I needed for salad. I had nothing. I couldn't fry an egg. I couldn't cook a steak. I couldn't make a dessert because I had nothing there at my station. So you think about it, then somebody else did, you know, the deep fryer stuff. Someone else did the grill. Someone else did the prep, right? All of those different jobs all produce different meals. Some meals use the same ingredients, some don't, right? And so everybody's got their role to play. Everybody's got their job to do. You want to make sure that they have everything they need to do their job. And I think that's what we've got. So the core, Salesforce is built around the core of the account model. So a lot of times you'll even hear out in the world, account-based marketing. What does that mean? Well, it's just saying that the account is at the center of your world. Now, some companies that use Salesforce, it's really the consumer, the person that's at the center of all their world. And Salesforce has addressed that. We'll come, if that's your case, if you sell to just people, then that account structure may seem like a heavy load, but Salesforce has devised solutions for those problems over the last 20 years of their 21 years. They're now old enough to drink almost. I think July is their anniversary date. So there's different types of things. But the other thing is that Salesforce is based on standard and custom objects. So the standard object in Salesforce is a lead. Anybody remember, want to put it in chat, how I define what a lead is? For the base help of our new customers? You want to take a stab at it? This is interactive now. This isn't television. I know you're looking at a screen. Try a different card. All right, here it is. Prospective customer. Yeah, Gil got it in more my definition. It could be a prospective customer, Divya, except in the world of planet Earth, there's not agreement on what a lead is. So in order for us to come to an agreement, I'm going to say it's a digital business card. What's on that business card is the name of the company and the name of the person. So I've got two bits of information, people and company. And that lead is going to require some activity, a phone call, a knock on the door, some interweb research for me to figure out if they're worth pursuing to make money. When they are, whatever the rules of your company are, and every company's got different rules about what qualifies a lead versus what disqualifies a lead. Now, let me take a step back. Typically, marketing is in charge of leads. Marketing has the leads, right? I'm from downtown. I've got the leads. That's a quote from Glengarry Glen Ross. Leads need to be worked. And old school is I work that lead until they buy. It goes straight to a sale. Well, that's fine in some cases, right? In some organizations, that's all they care about. That's as complex as it gets. If I have your business card, when I sold life insurance, all I needed was your business card to follow up with you because I could put notes on the back. And once I got to meet with you, it didn't matter. Now I was just working that. It was fine because it was a very shallow complexity. Well, today's selling is much more complex. And, we know that there's things that people buy more than once. They bring in multiple people to sale. I need a more robust way of keeping track of my data other than running out of space on the back of a business card. So a lead gets converted into a record that represents the company that's on that lead and a record that represents the contact or the person on that lead so that I can now, operate independently, because I may or may not at that point, once I know that that company is qualified and that person is real, that may not be the person that I have the conversation with that I'm going to make money or provide value to them. So that conversation is contained inside of a record called an opportunity. And an opportunity record is the only place you make money in Salesforce. All right. And you can have, we'll talk about activities and activity tracking and all that stuff when we talk about some of the ways you manage the way you do business. So Lightning is based upon the new framework. And so that Lightning is more like the mobile experience, and that as you develop Lightning in your organization, it translates to the mobile experience. And there's also a new mobile experience that's coming out soon with the next release. If it hasn't already come out, it's going to come out by April. There's more built-in productivity tools so you can help close deals faster. Because ultimately, if you can streamline your process, move that customer journey to give them what they need when they need it, then they kind of move through the assembly line a little faster. And again, you can read this, why it makes Lightning so special. Basically, Lightning's special because that's where all the technology advancements are, right? And then in an opportunity, remember the opportunity, all the phone calls, all the emails, all the letters, all the marketing, everything that you do, if you do it inside of an opportunity, they become revenue generating activities versus qualifying activities to turn that business card into money. Is going to take into business, you need to make money. And the way you contain the activities is in an opportunity record. I like to call them sales conversations. Sales conversations. This conversation includes these 3 people about those 4 products based on those campaigns that they saw in marketing. These are the details that I'm tracking as I move through the sales process, which has a beginning, middle, and end. They're more like projects. Leads are project-based. There's a beginning, a middle, and end. You get the lead, you make the calls, you end up with a result. You get the opportunity, you do the work, you end up with a result. Right? Just like a case. The problem arises, you do some work, you solve the problem. It's a project. That's going to be important later on as we talk about things like sales processes, lead processes, case processes, all known as business processes. Okay. So when you're done and you want to read through this, you'll be able to take the little quiz at the end. Again, separating leads from accounts, contacts. And remember, we talked a lot last week about list views. List views being the one tool that you should not only learn, master, and advocate for throughout your organization, but really make sure that if at every chance you get as an administrator, find a reason to create a better list view or teach someone to create their own list views, because list views really help you pick the right data at the right time for what you can and will be able to do at any given time and moment in time, whether it's, where you're chunking your time to do a particular activity like make salads, or if you're, looking for something to do and you're looking to see what you can get done. List views really help you start to think in a more productive way, because you can filter your records in a particular object. And if anybody knows what I said last week, if you can filter, what can you do? What's the F word that you can do if you can filter your records? Anybody remember what I said last week? If you can filter, you can
Find it.
You can find it, right? You can find it, or you can focus. It's another F word. Either way, you can find the thing you're looking for to do the thing that you have time, energy, and resources to do. So if you can focus, if you can find it, you can focus, and you can fulfill on what you're trying to do. 3 F's. How about that? You can find it, you can focus, find it, and fulfill on whatever you're trying to accomplish, but you can't do that without filtering. So that's what the list views allow you to do. There's another feature built in. That's the Kanban view, and I think it's pronounced Kanban. It allows you to look at your records in a different way, so you can see them and get insights and really do work on those and think in terms of blocks, projects, and pictures. which is a much more useful way to see data. The next most useful way to see data is in reports and dashboards. So once your data is getting in and you know you're getting data in, now you can use reports to get information out of Salesforce. The first kind of information I look for is, did I get good data in? Am I getting good data? And we talked about that in terms of adoption. One of the ways that you tell it to get good data is if all the fields of a record are filled out. Now, I'm not saying you should fill out all the fields of every record, but you should see if critical fields are being filled out at the right time. My dad was a, yeah, I do. Can you see in the back? Okay, so this is my dad. He was a band director. This is my dad. He was a band director. He gave me this metronome, and a metronome is designed to keep time. So you play the music, and you hit the beat on time so that the music sounds right. If you've ever been to a show with a band and they were just all right, it was probably the drummer's fault. He probably sucks. He probably did not know how to keep time really well, or the band wasn't jiving, because my dad used to say you got to play the right note at the right time, at the right volume, with the right tone in order to have beautiful music. And you can have music with just notes and time, but to have beautiful music, you got to hit the right note, the right time, at the right volume, the right tone, the right tempo, the whole 9 yards, right? In order for it to flow harmoniously, to make harmony happen. So reports are a great way to see how your harmony is doing. Now, are you going to figure this out with just reports? Not right away, but you will over time learn to discover which type of feedback allows you to adjust and get better results, so you can start to play with what things are getting in. And we'll talk about some of those in terms of just in your organization, who's logging in. The first step to getting good data is logging in to see the data and do something with it, right? So any questions, comments about the CRM for Lightning experience, getting started with Salesforce CRM? Okay, if you haven't completed this one, that's one that you want to do. And then the next little piece we're going to do is talk about the setup menu, where you're going to be spending some time as we start to get in the hands on this again. We talked about navigating Salesforce, right? And that it's very structured, and that you've got the navigation bar along the top, your apps, your tabs, your app launcher are all built-in ways to help you navigate to from where you are to where you want to go next. So next, whatever's next is the secret. Okay, one of the secrets to productivity, besides keeping your word, is knowing what to do next. And really, it's as important to know what you're going to do next, or knowing that you know how to figure out what's next is so important to be productive, and both for you and your users. So that conversation about what's next is always critical in productivity, because if you think about it, if you don't know what's next, you're pretty uncertain about what to do now. Like, you can't even keep your mind on what's happening now because you don't know what you're going to do next, and that causes a problem. So there's lots of features built into the Salesforce navigation bar in Lightning that aren't there in Classic. In Classic, you basically have your tabs, and that's it. And I think we talked about this. We went through it last week through the recording. You can see we went through and did examples of all these things. But the most important thing you want to think about is, can you present everything a user needs at the time they need it without presenting them everything and having them be overwhelmed? You see too much data. You ever TMI, too much information? Well, this is TMD or TMC, too many choices, too much data, too many options. All of those things, when it becomes too many, it confuses people. They don't know what to do next, or they pick the thing that's the easiest to do because, you know, human beings are electrical creatures. And so we tend to follow that path of least resistance. So these are all of the places that you need to go. And again, it's kind of a recap, a review, but if you haven't done the trail, make sure that you go through that. And then I want to show you the setup menu, because the setup menu is where, as an admin, let's go to it. So if you're in your developer org, let's do it together. The very top right-hand corner of your screen, there's a little gear, a cog. And if you hold your mouse over it, you can see that it says setup. If I go with that, click on setup, and then you got a couple of different options: setup, server setup, developer console, and edit page. And this will change depending on where you're at when you click it. But just click the setup one. There's a little pop-up window. It said it'll pop it up in a new window. And once you're in setup, you're now into the back end of data of Salesforce. This is the part that most people don't understand. And when they get in here without training, they really screw things up. And if you really want to see what some of those are, go to org. I'll put it in org confessions. And what I love about this website is these guys presented to me, and you can always go there to see what kind of mistakes people have made. And I can just tell you about some of my experiences on some of the 50 to 70, I forgot, I lost count after 50. So it's somewhere between 50 and 70 deployments that I've been on of Salesforce implementations. And I've seen some really crazy stuff inside of this, right? But let's just do a quick, let's do a quick tour of where we're at, because we're going to start doing stuff back here, starting as early as next week. So let's talk about this piece of the puzzle. So the first thing you can see is in the setup menu, you've got two tabs, Home and Object Manager. Now, in Object Manager, what do you think that is? Yep, that's all the objects. See, help users focus on record details. This is called the in-app guidance pop-up. Close that down because I don't need it right now. Now, all of your objects are, again, all of the tables of data. And the more applications you load from the App Exchange or the things you create in a custom way, you will get more objects. Now, this is 50 items, but I've seen as many as 687 objects in a customer's org. And some of that was because of the apps that they downloaded but you can contain data in each little silo. Remember, but it's related data, so there's connections between it. I'll show you a little tool that's built in. So the Object Manager lists all the objects. We'll come back to Object Manager in a minute. When you go to the Home tab, this is more of the settings about the object. So you got the front end, the users use stuff, all the dials and whistles. You crack open the machine and you look in the back, and then you've got your objects where all the data is stored. There's dials on those. And then you got your Home tab where all of the feature controls are. So let's look at some of this. Now look, you learn this by clicking through it, and we're only going to cover about a third of everything that's back here, maybe close to a half, but closer to a third that we're going to cover in the next 16 weeks, just 4 hours a week. But there's Setup Home. There's a transition assistant that's there because Salesforce is constantly pushing people to transition to Classic. They're doing that a couple ways. They're making Lightning really awesome with a lot of tools built in that you can really add functionality to your org, bringing in data from other places. And also they stopped doing development on Classic. Now those Classic people that love Classic, God bless them, they can hold fast about how things work when you just go to Classic. Like, you're tired of changes, go to Classic. Tired of updates, go to Classic. Got to do something, tired of trying to figure out how to do new things, go to Classic. They stopped all development on Classic. All the new innovations are going to Lightning. When you need those things, you can switch to Lightning. You can even stay in Classic with your rest of your org doing all that Lightning stuff. Now, as an admin, you could turn that off for different users or not. This is the mobile app quick start that if you don't wait for the update to come your way, that's on its way right now. If you want to jump in and see what the new mobile experience is like, you can log in on your developer org and actually check it out. That's what the purpose of the developer org is. And so you can see those things. Now, did it come in? So there's a new path. It basically, they changed it. If your buttons, if your menu is on the top, you still have the old version. If your menu is on the bottom, you have the new version. That's how easily you can tell the difference. Wait, somebody can't see my screen? Hold on. Wait, that was 7. Oh, I can't see both at the same time. Thank you for that. Well, look at my video. You can see this is my mobile app has not been updated yet. You can see I got my menu up at the top. So if you follow the steps on the page, you can do that. Now we'll go back to the screen. So there's a lot of things we're going to cover. So when we start talking about users, those are the people that log into your org and can access your data depending upon the license that they have for the different features that you're purchasing from Salesforce. So if you wanted to do something with users, in the quick find, you could just navigate, scroll down like I just did, or you could type in, when you know what you're looking for in Salesforce, you can just filter at the very top by the thing you're looking for. Now I put in US, and it's slow on my screen. Kind of slow. It's user. Usery. So this is a little filter where you can filter out anything that contains the thing you're looking for. So again, if you want to filter so you can find and what you want to focus on to finish, how many F's can we do? Finally, then you can just type it in. And when you're done, just close it, and then it refreshes everything's on the page. So if you were to do something like auto, right, anything in that little filter, that what I'm actually teaching you right now is how that filter box works. So you do not want to hit enter, because when you do I think they actually turned it off in Lightning. Yeah, they did. In Classic, if you were to type enter, it actually makes a mess of your screen, and then you really can't find what you're looking for. It's just the way it works. So this is a little feature filter, if you will. So let's just go through some of all the things that are there. And just so you have, by the way, Salesforce is just like your brain. The more you use it, if you don't use it, you lose it, right? So the more you use it, the better you get. And whatever you're good at, whatever you do a lot, you're going to get really good at it. Now, why do I say that? Well, because that's where help lives. So when we actually work together in this cohort, some of you are going to be better at something. You're going to spend, something's going to catch your interest more. You're going to do more with it. But out in the community, it expands. And in the Salesforce success community, where you get to when you click on the help button, is there are a lot of people that are really, really, really good at formulas. And if you're not really good at formulas, you're not going to get good at formulas without being bad at formulas for a long time and really struggling. There's no easy way to get good at formulas. How do I know? Because I'm not good at formulas. I've been doing them for 5 years, and I'm not good at them, but I got a guy who is, and for $65 an hour, I can hire him to do my formulas faster and better than I can do myself in 65 hours. So it's well worth my time and effort to pay Handy. That's his name. But okay, so, but now, but whatever you get good at, or whatever you're not good at, know that somebody else is, right? So I got my users and the data. Let's talk about users for a second. You got basically a couple of things that we're going to work with when we get to users is the user themselves. That's the person who has a record. And in their record, they've got a profile, which is what you, in fact, again, that's a set of permissions that person allows them to see and do things in the org. Permission sets, which are just smaller versions of a profile, like little ingredients. You know, you order the same dish as your friend at the restaurant, and they add more salt than you do. Well, not only are they going to have high blood pressure and a heart attack, but it's because they added to what their recipe. Same thing happens here. You also create public groups here, which are groups of users that you're going to use in different ways, and I'll show you how to do that. Queues are groups of users that you can create to own records. Roles are where people live in a role hierarchy, like a HR, like this. You report to this person, reports to that person, blah blah blah. We'll talk about how that gets done. So all of that's in the user tab, in the user section. Data has everything related to data. So exporting data, data integration, duplicate management, mass delete, mass transfer, mass manipulation of data. Not like political parties, but like the way you move data from one place to another inside the system at a little small scale. Then there's tools you can use. As far as that goes, you can check out your storage. You can also set up, this is a very important one to set up, which is your email connectivity to Salesforce. And I got to tell you, when you use the mobile app and you connect to Salesforce through your email, or make sure you get those combined, because email is such a ubiquitous communication tool, productivity screwer upper in the world. This is where you can set up all things email. So you can set your email footers if you're in a legal business. You can set your templates or your letterhead. We're not going to get into all of these. You can even set up email to Salesforce. Like, you don't even have to enter a record. You can just email it to Salesforce. If you have things like info at your company, sales at your company, service at your company, premium something at your company, you got all those emails. You can set up those email addresses. You can configure it to synchronize with Outlook or your Gmail and make sure that it syncs that way. All those things are inside the email tab, part of your administration tab. Now there's under platform tools, there's a whole lot more tools. We're going to get into some of them. We're going to talk about apps, connected apps. Packaging is more of an advanced feature. Feature settings are things like, let me get back, let me close this one down. So there's chatter settings, there's community settings, there's marketing settings. Quip is their version of Google Docs settings. Your sales, your service, your files, topics, all those we're going to get into about 25% of them in this class, because there's just so much to cover with those. And some of them don't even apply to what we're doing. You've got Einstein settings, objects and fields, global settings for that. User interface settings, things that change the user experience for all users. See, it's not a specific user, it's all users, right? So, and again, we're not going to go into a whole bunch of these. Lightning App Builder, we're going to spend some time on. Quick text settings. What else we're going to touch on? We're going to probably touch on user interface a little bit. And then, so that's where they are. Custom code, we're not going to touch at all, neither development, neither environments. I don't think we even have an environment. Yeah. Environments are things like sandboxes, we're not going to touch. User engagement, that's the adoption assistance, help menu, and in-app guidance. So these are tools that are built into Salesforce that prompt users to do stuff depending on where they're at. When they click, it'll pop up messages for them. We're not going to do much of that now. We'll do it toward the end. Integrations. One of the greatest things I've noticed about Salesforce, being in the CRM game for over 20 years, now I worked with the big boys early on in my career, but then I still, support small businesses. And, there's a lot of, when Salesforce started, they were like everybody else. They were like Pipedrive and Sales Drive. And, everybody was trying to be like Act, because Act was the predominant sales management tool that you had, but it was a single user, single station kind of thing. And now, Salesforce put it in the cloud. Well, what made Salesforce special is all of the integrations, and really still what makes Salesforce special. If you get Salesforce, you get everything else. If you get anything else, you might not get everything else, right? If you get anything else, you might not get everything else. If you get Salesforce, you get everything else. Everybody now wants to plug into Salesforce if they're halfway intelligent. Matter of fact, it's one of the ways I gauge whether or not I want a tool is, does it integrate with Salesforce? If it doesn't, then how good could they be thinking? They're not plugged into the #1 CRM on the planet where 16% of the businesses on the planet use Salesforce. I don't want that. So that's just going to limit my abilities, right? I don't want to limit my abilities. And you got notifications, and then there's things like settings. We are going to spend some time in company settings. Like setting your business hours is critical. Why? Because business hours control your agreements, right? If you agree to do something within 4 hours, but you don't get it until 4 o'clock and you close at 5, then you only burned up 1 hour. You didn't break your agreement until, say, you open at 8 till 11 the next morning, right? So you got to think about those kind of things, right? The way you set your calendars up, your company information, the place you go to figure out what's going on with my company. What are my holidays? Do I have multiple languages? Do I have multiple currencies? Do I have a different fiscal year than the calendar? All of those are blankets that cover everything from your company, and they're contained in the company settings, and it's on the test. Okay. Right? I'm also going to point out stuff that's on the test. Data classification, we don't even get into that. We will get into security a lot. And a couple of the major things that we're going to talk to about security are things like your login access policy, whether you have delegated administrators, which are people that you can make an administrator, but all they really can mess with is what users. They're really user administrators. I don't know why they call it delegated administrator. It's really just a user administrator. They don't get to change all these other settings. Your session management. Do people have to stay log in and be active? Like, if you're depending on your security environment, maybe you got to shut it down in 2 hours or 3 hours. If somebody's not using their computer, you don't want anybody else logging in or anybody else having access to that login, or it's just company policies. And then the big one is the sharing settings. And sharing settings is how you control access to records that people should or should not see in your organization, either for security purposes or just a matter of number of records, and you don't want to overwhelm them. So that's everything in setup at the home tab. I told you we come back to the object manager. Does anybody have any questions about the home tab in setup first? Are we all good? Kind of give you I'm just trying to give you we're just working our way from the big picture down, and then we'll start doing more specific actions on all these things. Now the object manager, they pretty much all work the same. So I'm going to click on the account because it's the closest one to my mouse pointer. And you can see that when I'm in the account settings, there's now a whole set of options, and they're different for different objects. But I have things like fields and relationships, how I can create new fields. I can create dependencies on pick list fields. So if you were to pick, you know how sometimes you go to a website and they go, what country you're from? And you put US, and then what state are you in? And you get 50 choices, right? Maybe 52 or 54 if you count provinces. But if you picked UK, you'd have a different set of choices for country, right? And that's called a dependency. And you create that in Salesforce. History tracking is when you track the changes to a field. So you know who changed what and when they did it, and from what did they change it to. So you have a record of who's making changes in that object. You got page layouts. How do you display the data to your users, right? They're not all the same. You can customize all this stuff. Notice there's a couple of different page layouts already built in. I don't think there's much difference to them. Typically, I get rid of a lot of these extra things. Lightning record pages is a lightning feature you'll find in the lightning setup where you actually make changes. You can create buttons, links, and actions for that object. So, for example, if certain things are always the same, you could create a button that does a lot of that work for you, right? That's called a quick action. Like send them an invoice, it automatically does, and you can send an invoice, those kind of things. Compact layouts are for the things that you're making. How does this show up on a smaller screen? Oops, did I click content? So smaller screens are things like the mobile, an iPad, there's a system default, but you can customize it. And you can, basically you're customizing it for different groups of people. Hey, look, not all cooks are created equal. Some do salad, Some do stake. I want to make sure that their compact layout looks a little different. Field sets, object limits, record types, all those things we're going to cover. Search layouts, how the search layouts look, how the hierarchy columns, what's, like if you got account hierarchies, right? There's a national, a regional, a local account hierarchy. How do you want that to, what information in each column do you want to see with that? And then validation rules we'll cover, which is about your data integrity, right? So somebody can't enter in something that looks like this. We want to set the rails on the data we enter. So that I'm trying to get my hand. I want to set rails on the data so we get the kind of data we need to process and produce what we want to accomplish in Salesforce. Okay, just about every object is full of that. Some of these things we're not going to talk about. I don't want to get into them much. Questions, comments, or concern? That was the robust version of this particular trail, but I wanted you to see all of it in my way of seeing the setup. I'm just looking to see if there's anything else that, what we did not do is run a search, but I think everybody, if you haven't figured out how to run a search, we'll get to that. We're going to do it more when we set those search settings in the future. And again, when you complete these and I get you set up in my system, and I get you your email working, sometimes the emails are coming through, sometimes it's settings. I got to figure out some settings. So you'll get a quiz. The points matter, but they don't. I just want you to make sure that you complete them. And if you want to retake them, you always can, if you want to get that done for yourself. So that's CRM for the Lightning experience. Does anybody have any questions, comments, or concerns about it? Let's see if I want to get this one. I think that's the next one. All right. So the next one we're going to cover is user management. Now, this one we are going to take a little time for. We're going to go through it because user management is critical. As a matter of fact, we're going to do some user management in my live org while we do this, not my developer org, but let's talk about adding new users. So a user is that person that's going to log into your org. It's a record. It can be customized. You can add to it. Every user has some things that are unique to that user. Number one is their username. The email address may not be unique. That doesn't matter. But the username must be unique. It's got the user's first and last name and also the license that they're using. So for example, most licenses that you're going to be dealing with are the Salesforce license. That's the Salesforce platform. Basically, it includes accounts, campaigns, leads, accounts, contacts, opportunities, cases, depending on the edition, products, quotes, price books, standard with the license, access. If you have a different license, you may get access to different orgs, different objects, right? We talked about that with the different editions of Salesforce. There's Essentials at $25 a month, Professional at $75 a month, and then Enterprise at $150 a month. So kind of triples and then doubles again to Unlimited, which Unlimited really just comes with support. Most people buy the Enterprise license if they're a fully fledged business with over 50 users. It's all Enterprise all the time, typically, because of the type of access that you need. A lot of people on this call, I think, have the I have the Essentials edition right now. I actually have both. I have the Essentials and the Enterprise edition. And a lot of my customers have the Professional edition, so I'm pretty familiar with Professional. The profile is that set of permissions that are assigned to a user that fall into a group of users. So one easy way to think about it is I got my sales users, I got my service users, and I got my executive users. Let's say you're a very streamlined company, right? So anybody that's in management gets one profile. Anybody that's in sales gets one profile, and everybody in service gets another profile. And they can each see and do different things because they have a different role, a job in the organization. Now the role, it says, is optional, but that's not 100% true. It's optional because but it's a required field, but one of the options is not assigned or not specified. So if someone doesn't have, if you haven't created a role hierarchy, then nobody has a role and it doesn't matter. If you do create a role hierarchy, not everybody has to be in that little structure. It could be outside the structure. Same profile, it has to deal with record access. Roles has to do 100% with record access. It's got an R, so it's records and roles. You can always remember that one. Profiles always have to do with permissions. User permission. User permission is based on their profile. PPP. And the other P is permission sets, which is specific to a user. But those profiles are for groups of users. Now, we're going to go into it. We're going to do it a lot in this class. And as you do these things, I want to always remind you to use the correct terminology, because when it comes to taking the test, that matters. They're going to flip-flop role and profile because you think role as job role. They're the role of CEO. So therefore, they have the CEO profile. No, different thing in Salesforce altogether. So we're going to create some users. I'm going to demonstrate creating a few users. Then I'm going to assign Amy a chance to do that. I'm going to assign you a chance to create a new user in your dev org. Okay? And what I'd like you to do is actually chat to everyone. Somebody, let's see. I'm gonna do it very, very skillified. So I've already created Amy. So Amy, everybody listen there, Simon, give me a green check box if you got it. Amy, I'm gonna ask you to create, let's see, wait, 1, 2, 3, 4, yeah. Amy, I'm gonna ask you in your org, if you go to users, everybody do this. Everybody go to users. Click on the little drop down for users. And then here where it says new user, we're going to go round robin in alphabetical order. So here's what's going to happen. I'm going to create Amy as a user. Amy, you create Divya. Divya, you create Gil. Gil, you create Julia. Julia, create Melinda. Melinda, create Brian. Brian, create Amy. So Brian, what I'd like you to do is chat each other your email address, and then here's what we're gonna do. So I'm gonna demonstrate for you. So I'm gonna create, actually, yep. So that little pop-up right now, that is my Chrome browser doing that to me. So be careful when that pops up. That's Chrome autofill. Just hit the escape key, and then. And I'm going to say Amy. Now it's going to, when you hit the, no problem. That's fine. No worries. It's going to automatically copy the email address into the username. But I can't have that because, why? Because every username has to be unique, and I already know Amy's got amy@salesandtechnology.com already done. So what I'd like you to do, all right, so now nickname, Amy, Dev. You can put in the rest. Notice that role is required, but one of the roles is not specified. I'm gonna leave that down. I have a Salesforce license, and my profiles, now this is a little, I'm going to make her a standard user. Just make everybody a standard user. Now, in the user, of course, you can put title, VP of company, department, division, no, international. Right? There's other, just so you can see it, there are other licenses that are controlled on the user record, not the profile. So these are it's a little feature of the user record that, for example, happens to be on the test, is why I'm saying it. The marketing user, checkbox being checked, allows this person to create campaigns. You can't put that on a profile. You have to check, you specify that by user, okay? All the same things you need licenses for. We don't have those licenses, so we're not gonna, well, actually we do have some of them, but we're not gonna mess with all that. The other thing is, typically you wanna put in their address, because that helps, this is like HR stuff, you typically import this. By default, it's Pacific Standard Time, so you gotta pick whatever time zone they're in. We're gonna talk about locale and language. Real quick note on these, they're different. So English as a language is one language, but English as a locale says, what kind of English do you like? Do you like the British kind? Do you like the Australian kind? Do you like the US kind? What kind of English do you like, right? Because they're always different. If you think about how the dates in UK, they always go, I think it's month, day, year. And we go, no, theirs is day, month, year. And it always messes me up if anything's in the first 12 days of the month that they're doing, because it's like 12. Well, that doesn't make any sense. I mean, whatever it is, it's the locale. It's how numbers are presented, it's how dates are presented, it's how phone numbers are presented to the user based on their record. Now, a couple of other things. If you do have approval processes that something needs to be approved, you can designate who the manager is or the delegated approver. And again, if you have other things that are important, you can even create custom fields that link to other records and that type of thing. The last thing that's there, that's why you need to make sure of this, is by default, that generate new password and notify user immediately. Boom. That's going to send them an email to that email address. So make sure you have each other's email addresses correct in a second, not just yet, if you haven't done it. And now you have another user in your org. Now this person is going to be somebody that you can communicate with, because if you chat them, you send them a message through Chatter, they're going to get an email notification because they're a full-on Salesforce user. Now, I'm going to ask you to go through and in the hang on a second. If you would, private message each. I think if you can't, can y'all private message each other? Did I have that setting? Can anybody tell me? Can you private message? I know you can private message me, and you can private message. You can message everyone. You can't private. Okay, so just in the post, put your preferred email address for this org, whatever email address you want. The username should be. I'm going to do this. The username should be their email dot whatever the last part of the email is. Just put dev on the end of it. So whatever their email address is that they give you, just put .dev on the end of it, and that'll be their username. So I know I'm going to load you up with logins. Guess what? That's a part of understanding and working with Salesforce, knowing how to manage multiple logins. Because if you get into it, especially if you're an admin, you're going to have logins to sandboxes, you're going to have logins to dev accounts, you're going to have logins to your Trailhead, and it's always going to be a challenge, and that's just the way it is. And so I want you to just do it now. So just post your email address so that we can put you in, and then I'm going to send you one later tonight that is a login to our org with your sales and technology email address. Perfect. So now, Divya, you got Gil. He's got his email up there. Gil, you got Julia. Brian, you have a different email address you want me to put in there? Divya's got hers. Amy, you got that. So again, like your email address would be 17dready.com.dev. Even if you have .com.dev, it's all good. Like it all works out. Brian, can I use your, Melinda, you want to use your M. Lewis at Blue, what's it called? Blue, oh, just type it in. Perfect, Brian. So Brian, Blue Marble Learning. I was thinking blue, something else. Blue. M. Lewis. So who's got Melinda? Brian, you got Melinda. Create a full Salesforce user license for her. And I think that Melinda and Amy, let's see, Melinda, for you to add Amy, would let's do Amy. To do that one. So there, you pick your person, create an account for them in your dev org. And we'll just go from there. And when you're done, give me a green checkbox. I am going to pause the recording. Not yet. All right. So now that you've got those users, I'm going to repeat it a little bit for the recording. Now that you've created that user, you can actually interact with that user on your platform, but we're going to deactivate that user in a minute anyway. I just wanted you to get a chance to, I don't want you having another org to log into, but know that you could, and you can work it out with your buddy in that regard. And you can log into multiple orgs on your mobile device as well. Now, monitoring the trust status, I'm going to open up a new browser window. If you go to trust.salesforce.com, this website, as in the trainings, we used to actually train on this a lot, but right now we kind of use it as part of training so that you know that it's there. We mention it. It's not critical, but it's one of the things you can do when you really get into, like if you're having problems, this is where you want to go. If you want to see your system status, if you go to your org, you'll see that there's a NA, right before lightning.force, there's a number, typically NA for North America, and the number is a server farm. So if someone says, hey, this thing seems to be running slow, you can check out all of the different clouds to see their status. I like the system status. You click on status at salesforce.com. This gives you all of the farms and all of their current status. And so you might be experiencing an outage, or somebody might be experiencing an outage. It's good to know where your cloud is located. See if there's any incidents, if there's any management. If you want to check your service cloud, sales cloud. See, yeah. Notice all of these. You could filter it by, there's 260 server farms. Where are we? We are NA 174. So we're down. Here we are. Everything's green, good to go. If you want to check out different clouds, they kind of basically sit on different data servers. That's all it really is. It's not really in the cloud. It's really on the ground, connected via the internet to some data farm that pumps it back to you. You can see if there's any maintenance, disruptions, was there a terrorist attack, any of those things, right? You can look and see what all of them are doing. And again, it's just one of those things Salesforce wants you to know is there, called trust.salesforce.com. That user you have, let's talk about a couple things that are on the user record. We'll use this user in some of our trainings so you can practice what it is. So practice how things work. The first thing is, notice when we look at our list of users, you notice here's all of your list of users. It'll tell you whether they're active or not. Now, I want to explain something to you that's very, very, very important. You never, ever, ever overwrite a user's record. So Amy is a user in this org. If she stays around for one day and quits, and Melinda takes her place, I would not overwrite Amy's record with Melinda's. I would just create a new record for Melinda, because Amy's no longer active. If I want to make Amy active, then I just have to activate her user license. If I'm out of user license, I just have to buy one more. It's really simple, right? So you can see that you got some basic information. I'm gonna go back to, we'll go to my record so you can see this. You click on the user record. This is a little still classic-y in its experience, which is fine. You notice you've got, this is very classic-like, you've got these links up at the top. These are basically the bottom of the page. Notice these are all my related lists down here at the bottom. And if there is, if for ease of navigation, if you hover to discover, which is a technique of learning in Salesforce, and you want to see I want to see my login history, I can see, oh, I logged in on the 20th, 23rd, and the 27th. I was successful each time. This is my IP address. Now, the reason I'm showing you this is because on the test, there's always a question of the hundreds of questions they pull from for your 60 to pass the test. It seems like there's always one that says, where's the first place you check when a user has trouble logging in? And the answer is login history. And the reason is because this tells you what they need. So if a user attempts to log in too many times, their account gets locked out. And the user doesn't know their account is locked out because Salesforce doesn't show what's locked out. So if I go to login.salesforce.com, and I try to log in as Amy, and you can try to log in as your person as well. Amy at it doesn't matter what the password is, because you'll never know the password. You own the organization, you'll never know the password. Why? Because Salesforce is secure, unlike AT&T, who has families recite their PIN, personal identification number, which is not personal at all, because the whole family's got to know it. If they need to call up and make changes on the account, it's not secure. AT&T, call it a FIN, not a PIN. It's a family identification number, not a personal identification number. So stop calling it what it's not. I'm sorry, I have a thing with AT&T because they suck. Okay, so no matter how many times I try a password, what it is, I'm never gonna know. And I'm never gonna get a message other than this message, which is, please check it. Please check your username and password. If you can't log in, contact your administrator. So when I went in to get certified as a trainer for Salesforce, I asked the question, why don't they tell me if it's the username or password? That's a pet peeve of mine. Tell me which one it is so I know which one to fix. And the answer was, that's exactly what a hacker wants to know. A hacker wants to know, is it the username or the password? Because they're collecting pieces of a puzzle. They don't need the whole puzzle right away. If they collect one piece, then they've eliminated a variable. They're now working off of known information. That's all they're trying to do is put together known information. So it's always going to say the same message. So no matter how many times I try to log in, it's going to reflect on Amy's account. Now let's go look at Amy's account. Amy calls me up and says, hey, I can't log in. I'm like, okay. hang on, let me check it out. The first place I'm going to check is, oh yeah, you're not using the right password, Amy. And it tells me the time and the location, the IP address, and how they're trying to log in. No problem. That gives me good information. If Amy was frozen, and see the freeze button, if I had frozen Amy, let's say HR called me and said, we're letting Amy go tomorrow morning. I'm like, thank goodness, it's 5:40, I'm still here, I got the message. I can freeze Amy now because maybe she's got wind of it. I want to protect my org, but I haven't got the official paperwork yet. Fine, I'll just ignore it, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, I can freeze an account. It does not free up a license. Y'all say that with me to yourself. Freezing ain't free. Freezing doesn't free a license. If I try to add a new user right now, I would run out of licenses. How do I know? Because this org only has 2 licenses assigned to it. So you can do testing. Now, I know that from here. So I know Amy hasn't tried to log in yet either, because I know I've tried to log in. Those are my logins. So it tells you a lot. Sometimes a user says, I'm locked out, I can't get in. My password isn't working, can you reset it? And you go in the login history, there's nothing there, which means they have the wrong username, right? So there's nothing there. They have the wrong username. You don't reset the password. You need to make sure they got the right username so they can log in. And we'll talk later about how a profile can restrict a user, because their profile says you can only log in from these IP addresses, or you can only log in between 8 a.m. and 6 p.m. And so the location and the time are very important to me to know what's what. Now it's showing me PST because my actual user record still hasn't changed. I haven't changed it to Eastern time, right? I haven't set it up. So again, I could keep trying to log in as Amy. And at a certain, I think it's 10 now because that's the default. So Amy can log in right now. She tries. She checks her email and logs in. She'll confirm her account before I lock it. And again, when it's locked, it looks the same. I should have changed my password policy to 3, but I didn't. So I'm just going to keep doing some of these. Let's see now. Now, if I look at my login history, it still says 3. Does anybody know why it still says 3, but you saw me log in another 5 or 6 times? Little tidbit of information with Salesforce. Put it in the chat or open up your mic. The reason it only said 3, nope, it did not log in successfully. It's because you logged in successfully, or was that your answer? The reason is pages don't refresh until you refresh them. So any data that's loaded into a page isn't going to reflect any changes that you make or in data until you refresh the page. So now when I look at, there's Amy, she's been logged in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 times. The next time is going to be the 10th time. And within 10 unsuccessful logins, I believe that's the password policy by default. She is going to be now locked out. So lockout means that the user can no longer log in. They have to wait anywhere from 15 minutes. Well, I'll show you that real quick. I'll show you the password policy in a second. And it's my computer running slow. So if I look at it, she's 10 plus times. Now she's let me just click it. So now she's officially locked out. So even if she has the right password right now, she's officially locked out because she's been locked out. But the error message is exactly the same. Amy wouldn't be able to tell the difference if her password's locked out, if her account's frozen, if she's been deactivated, or if she's locked out. It's the same security message to the hacker or the user. anybody that's doing it. Now, where you control those things, remember we looked at some of the settings. If you just type in password, if you don't even know where to go, type in the thing that you're looking for first that might actually contain it. And under my password policies, all these settings are really dependent upon your security certified CISSP person. So a couple things happen, right? So in your password policies, this would apply to everybody in the org because it's your org password policies. And the reason I say that is because it's password policies for everybody. Passwords expire in 90 days. You can change that to 180 days. You can change that to a year. You can change it to never. You could change it to how many of the previous passwords does it remember, what it must include, and the number of attempts. You can basically make it 3, 5, or 10, and your lockout periods. And again, this is something weird with my browser. Is what's the lockout period? Now, that means in 15 minutes, Amy will be able to log in again because I did that just without me doing anything. So I'm going to change that login attempts. I'm going to go back to her user record. And I'm going to unlock her account. So I can simply, quickly, and easily unlock her account. And now Amy can log back in if and she wants to. Now, last little thing on users is, again, deactivating a user frees up a license. Freezing does not. I'm saying that a couple different ways. So you kind of get the hang of it. It's an important part to know. User. And it's an important part to know. Let's see. Where is it? Okay. Any questions about that? So a couple things we did. We activated a user. We used an available license, right? Because you have the license that you're paying for to give them access to the org and anything that org has. I gave her a profile, which was a set of permissions. Control. We're going to get into those things later on. And I gave her a role, which was not specified. All of the critical information that are there. Questions, comments, concerns. So the first step in user management is adding that new user. We're going to probably end up adding a new user in the next, you get a chance. I just wanted you to get your hands on it to understand what's happening. Okay, I think that's it for, let me go back to my trail mix. One of the things I don't like about Trailhead is it doesn't keep you on the same trail. So there's two units on user management. If you haven't completed those, please complete those. Complete the 2 units on I really don't want those 2 next, but you can. Let's see, there's a lot in here. Importing exporting. I really would rather chatter administration for Lightning Experience. So if you would, I'm going to put this one as your next assignment between now and next week, because I am going to understanding chatter and understanding how it works is going to be critical for us now interacting in our chatter group. From there. So getting started with chatter. So this will be about an hour of time for you 55, 45, about an hour. She might take about an hour. I don't care if you do the rollout strategy because we're rolling it out regardless. But understanding Chatter and how it works and how you can have Chatter users is as important as understanding how you have full Salesforce license users. Does anybody have any comments, questions, or concerns? Okay, so I'm going to unmute you one at a time, and I'm going to ask you, what's one thing that you learned today that one thing you're really glad you learned today? Divya, are you going to go first? I'm going to unmute you, maybe. Is it unmuting? Oh, there we go.
Hey, yeah, we tend to learn certain things, but then we forget. But interactive sessions like these are very helpful. They help you remember things which you have already learned.
That's true. With Salesforce, you got to do that. If you
Yes,
don't
yeah.
use it all the time in Salesforce, you're not going to remember it. So don't worry
Yes,
about your
exactly.
Thanks, Divya. Anything else?
I've learned new things.
Anything in particular you learned today? Oh, lost somebody. Lost Brian. Okay, thank you, Divya. Anything else? All right. Gil, how about you? Anything in particular you learned today that was useful or new or interesting or?
I'd say seeing users is good. And back to, I used Zoho for over a year.
Yeah.
And I like your part about deleting and starting new, because when I was in Zoho, I was added into someone else's account and it made a mess for the entire year. There's always ghosting. So
yeah, never ever. By the way, you can't delete a user, just so you know. Notice there's no delete button on the user record. That's a trick on the question. So when I go to Amy's record, I'm the system administrator. I've got God privileges. There is no delete button. Notice that? Can't delete a user. You can only freeze them or deactivate them. And it's a bad practice to overwrite them. Like you said, Gil, it creates this ghosting nature. And it's one of the biggest mistakes that untrained admins do inside their org. Thank you, Gil. Anything else?
that's it.
Thanks. Julia?
Hey.
Anything particularly you learned today that you were happy about learning or not, or unhappy that you had to learn it? Either way.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's sort of just a nice thing to realize that setup is basically like the most important thing for admins in some ways. Like it all happens in setup. So that's like a really nice like thing to digest and take away. And then also just a trick of like records and roles, permissions, profiles. Like I always fumble with those tiny little things. So those tricks are really helpful for me.
Yep, and then the P and the R, right? So that's, and I'll do that as much as I can. Yeah, because it definitely helps people remember, because on the test, there'll be two answers that are identical, and one has role in it, the other has profile. And until you key in on those keywords and have a way to remember what they're for, it will screw up enough of the questions to have you not pass the test. So thank you for that.
Cool. Thanks.
Anything else? You good?
All good.
Thank you. Melinda, what about you? Anything you learned today? Are you there? All right, Melinda's got, Amy, anything for you that you found valuable, useful and valuable today? Can't hear Amy. Amy, oh, there you are. I know you got pulled away, so I'm not pressing anything in particular.
I've got some catching up to do. Yeah.
All right. Hey, that's everybody in Salesforce always has catching up to do, right? We can't, the nature, thank you, Amy. The nature of Salesforce is you really can't keep up with what's going on with them. I mean, it's hard to keep up. Don't get me wrong. And we're going to this class slow. I'm not trying to, so look, take some time, review the trails. The next trail that I really would like you to complete is the Chatter trail. We're going to spend more time in that one. And then after Chatter, any of the other trails are fine, but just skip the Chatter first. And then we'll have a Q&A and then, you know, keep moving through the trails. on this. The data management I'm not so concerned about, but it's worth it. And then reports and dashboards is very useful as well. We're going to wait to do this lightning experience one. So just keep moving through it. I'll see you guys Wednesday. I'm looking at this at noon. Give me a checkbox if Wednesday at noon's a good time, or would you rather do it at 4 o'clock? We have something Wednesday? Oh yeah, you can't do it Wednesday at noon. That's fine. Amy. Is Wednesday at 4? About green for 4 o'clock, red for noon. Well, no. Green for noon, and if noon doesn't work, then I'll do it at 4 o'clock on Wednesday for Q&A. All right, I'll tell you what I'll do. Gil, do you have an answer in there? Are you better at 4 or at noon? 4 o'clock would be red, noon would be green.
No, I'm not available Wednesday.
Gotcha. Okay, no problem. All right, well, I'm gonna do noon on Wednesday. I'll send out a calendar invite. And if you don't have any questions, don't show up. And then if nobody's there by 15 minutes after, I will kill the call. So if you come late, it's because nobody was there for 15 minutes. I will add you to the chatter group. I got to add everybody to the chatter groups. So no problem. All right, and if you have questions, just email me. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your attention. We're going to crank this thing out a little bit at a time, little by little. We're going to knock it out. And again, my vision is that you get so good at Salesforce that you've got extra time and you can help me with my customers and help me build an army of part-time consultants that serve the small to mid-sized business market. And I appreciate you for being here. And again, email with any questions, comments, or concerns. And I will talk to you guys on Wednesday or Thursday. Thank you, Julia. Thank you, Divya. Thank you, Amy. Thank you, Gil. Bye, Melinda.
Thanks, Dominic. Have a great week.
You too.